Hi, all, and welcome to Monday night's All Metal Mode podcast with Gypsy, myself, Amanda Digger Degaz, and our special guest, Cody Drake, the Arizona treasure hunter. Before we get started with the show, a couple reminders. Dirt Digest Magazine.com, or Dirt Digest Magazine, has the March issue available at dirtdigestmagazine.com. Go to dirtdigestmagazine.com and click on current issue to read the March issue. This is an awesome monthly metal detecting magazine with stories, reviews, and finds. Dirt Digest Magazine is also accepting metal detecting stories and finds for the April issue. Have a story you want to share? Here is your opportunity. Go to dirtdigestmagazine.com to get directions on how to make your submission. Next up, check out allmetalmode.com for an awesome write-up from Joanna Lesnica. I think I talked about it last week, but it really is a great article. It's Dear Person Giving Me the Stink Eye While I Metal Detect. This is a really great one to share to those that just don't understand metal detecting. So definitely go to allmetalmode.com and check it out. Now, onto the show. Hey, Gypsy, how are you tonight?
I am doing wonderful. Despite all the craziness going on in the world, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm all right.
I guess all considered, you're alive, so that's what counts, right?
Yeah.
I know you've been under the weather, and I just hope you get better soon and feel better. I know always with the change of the weather, despite, all this other virus scare and all this other stuff that's going on, it's always crazy when the season changes. I always get, sinus issues and colds, and we all have, all that. So it comes with every change of season for me, and probably as well with you. And
Yeah.
I just hope you feel better and all of that. And thanks for being here tonight, despite, not feeling well. And hopefully we can make this a really positive, fun night talking about metal detecting and treasure hunting and all of that good stuff. So did you get out any this week, metal detecting?
I got out on a Saturday and went down to the river and did some river walking. Found a cool couple shards and half a really old spectacle, like that only had like the wire frame that would go around the ear. And then Sunday, I did get down to the fields. When it's really windy and cold, the fields just, they make metal detecting so difficult. So I skipped out on going Saturday and instead went Sunday when it was so nice out. So had a great time down there. How about yourself? Have you gotten out?
I did. Let's see. Actually, this weekend in Texas, it's one event that didn't cancel. It happened before all the craziness hit here. And well, I know it's been going on a while, but before it built up to that point where they were telling people to, not meet in groups of 50 or more and that kind of stuff. We had the Texas, it's called the TADMC, which stands for Texas Association of Metal Detecting Clubs, right here in Texas. And this year we met in Bryan, Texas, which is very close to College Station, where, Texas A&M is. And we met at the Brazos County Expo Center there, and different clubs from all over Texas came. And, of course, some didn't because of the craziness going on. Some decided not to travel. But the event went on, there was actually speculation that I was there to help out in the Garrett booth. And there was actually speculation at the very end after part of the Garrett group team got there, and I got there to help set up the booth, that they were going to tell them to turn around and just go home because they were afraid that the turnout would not be well, but decided to stick it out, and it turned out to be a great event. Sunday morning, we got to go do a seated hunt. It was a seated silver hunt, and I got to participate. And usually, like, say, for instance, if I'm at one of the, like the Charles Garrett hunt, for instance, if I find a token, I put it back, for someone else to win. But in this situation, I got to hunt, and I actually found 2 tokens.
Awesome.
And I got to cash them in, and it was really cool. I won 2 really cool prizes, and one of them was a Mexican gold coin, and the other was the other one was a of all things a white pinpointer.
Did it remind you of me?
It did. That's the first person I thought of, actually, was you. So. Yeah, it did. It made me think of you, and I was excited to win it, and I was thinking, well, it's going to be a great giveaway, and then I got to thinking, well, I do represent Garrett, so I'm working a trade with Brian at Digger's Den for a Garrett pinpointer, and it's going to work out fine, so somebody will be able to purchase that, I'm sure, for a white user, maybe such as yourself or someone will be able to purchase that, and I will probably be giving away, when I reach close to 5,000 on my YouTube channel, a Garrett pinpointer. So it all works out. It's great. So super excited. I had a blast getting the hunt, even though I normally don't care to participate in the seated hunts. It was great just getting out, getting to meet people, fellow diggers from, all over, and some people that I hadn't seen in years and years.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome that they were able to still keep it on and not, it's surprise.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And sadly, for those of you that don't know, which I'm sure most of you do know, if any of you were planning on participating in the Charles Garrett Memorial Hunt, it has been postponed, not canceled, but postponed. They're going to try to, at a later date, after a lot of this stuff blows over and we can, quarantine this virus and get it, out of whatever they plan on having that hunt, hopefully at the same location if they can acquire it there. But they do plan on having it, but right now it has been postponed.
I should probably say, too, the White's Easter egg hunt has been postponed as well. But the White's site, if you follow that at all, they're going to be giving away some gold tomorrow for St. Patrick's Day.
Ooh,
so online
that's awesome.
Yeah, online stuff's fun, too.
Cool. Exactly. Can't get out. Well, there's great things, always positive things going on. So that's a great way to do that. That's a great idea. I like that.
Right. Well, should we introduce our special guest?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to let you introduce him, but I'll go ahead and let you go for it.
All right. Well, tonight our special guest, as I said before, is Cody Drake, the Arizona treasure hunter. Welcome, Cody, to the show.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Thanks for having me on. Hi, Gypsy.
Hi. Welcome. It's good to have you back, Cody.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be back. I love y'all's podcast. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And I know we've got so much to share, and Amanda's probably dying. And for those of you that don't know, Amanda is part of the White's field team. And for those of you that don't know, Cody, I'll let you finish that sentence, Amanda.
And
Or
Cody is as well. Yeah. Cody, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I think I'm one of the newest members of the White Field team, so it's extremely exciting, and I just absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
I remember when I met Gypsy about, I think it was June or July of last year, she told me that she was a field team member for Garrett metal detectors, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, I want to do that. And then I had no idea that 8 months later I'd be with White, so I'm extremely happy.
That's
so much
exciting,
fun.
Cody. I'm so happy for you, and what a great ambassador you are for our hobby, and you're always, out there in the field smiling and sharing and digging history and sharing with others and speaking at events, and it's just a wonderful thing. I'm so happy for you. I had the pleasure of meeting Cody. Like he said, it was July? You said sometime.
I think it was the beginning of July, and we only had 2 hours to metal detect.
2 hours.
It was a quick trip. Yeah.
It was very quick. We got out and did some exploring together, and it was a lot of fun. And he was moving back to Arizona. He was stationed here in Texas, and little did I know he was right up the road from me, or we would have had more time. And I was getting ready to head out of town for something. I don't remember, but
I think you were going to Florida.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
I think,
take that trip every summer and go to Florida. Man, ready for that beach hunting. Oh, I can't wait. So, with all that said, welcome. And for those of you that don't know Cody, if you don't mind, start out telling us a little about your journey, how it began in metal detecting for those that don't know you. And then we'll start from there, if you don't mind. Introduce yourself and go from there.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, so hi, everybody. My name's Cody Drake. I'm the Arizona treasure hunter, and I'm a native Texan that was raised in Arizona. I was raised gold mining and prospecting throughout Arizona, and when my family moved to Arizona in 1993, I was 8 years old, and father got religiously involved with gold prospecting and gold mining, and so every weekend we were up in the mountains of Globe or Wickenburg, Prescott, and sometimes down by Tucson, and I was along for the ride. I was a daddy's boy, so had a lot of fun adventures, got to meet a lot of the old-time prospectors and learn their tricks and little secrets of the hobby there, and didn't get into metal detecting until probably the late 90s, and I learned desert survival along the way just from old-time prospectors, and then taking desert survival classes, and then I learned a lot in the military. And let's see, in the early 2000s, I got really into treasure hunting, and I think that's I don't know. I'm kind of a nerd, so.
I love it. That's great. It's good to be a nerd. I've been called a little bit nerdy and before too, when I get all technical about metal detectors or metal detecting, and I kind of geek out. But I guess that's what this podcast is about. We kind of geek out on what we love to do and our passions, and that's what's exciting.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to hand it over to Amanda, and I know she's got a list of questions for you, as well as I've got some questions for you, and we'd love to hear some stories and new adventures that you've been on. So go ahead, Amanda, if you've got a question for him.
Yeah, it might as well start off with this one because of the way of the world right now. But if you could detect anywhere and it was possible, where would you detect and why?
Is that anywhere in the world?
Yes, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So if I could metal detect anywhere in the world, I would go to Panama, right where the treasure fleets of the Pacific would dock and transport the Spanish treasure overland across the Isthmus of Panama to the, I think that's the Gulf of Mexico, or that's the Atlantic side. I think that's the...
Ooh.
Yeah, because that's where the only time that the Spanish treasure of Peru ever traveled overland was over Panama, and it was very narrow trails. It was on the backs of mules and donkeys, and there was a lot of accidents. Sometimes there was landslides, and there was a lot of burros and pack animals that fell off and into gullies and ravines and were left because the Spanish had to make time schedules. Sir Francis Drake tried several times to ambush the Spanish over these treasure trails in Panama, and one time he was successful, but he didn't net nearly as much wealth as he promised his men. And a lot of times, the pirates that did steal from the Spanish along these treasure trails buried the stuff to come back later because there was so much of it, but the Spanish would always repel them off. So that's where I would metal detect.
So there's still some hidden there.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I would hit, because it would travel from Peru to Panama. From Panama, it would go overland, and then it would go to Cartagena. From Cartagena to Cuba, and from Cuba, everything would set sail along the treasure coast of Florida. That's the 1622 fleet, the 1715 and 1733 fleets. They all traveled along the same route towards St. Augustine, and then they made a sharp right-hand turn towards Spain, following the Gulf Current.
It's awesome.
Wow. I love how you have really researched that, too, and are very knowledgeable in the history. That says a lot, and I'm sure there's loads to be found there, too. So maybe you never know. That might come true, huh? You just never know.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
So, and Gypsy, you made a good point. It sounds like you have done a lot of research. How do you go about researching these areas and get interested in an area? Do you do like overlaying or go to the library? Like, how are you doing the research on these places that are interest to you?
Well, in Arizona and the Southwest, and I do overlaying, so I take old maps and I overlay them with our modern maps, because the one thing that changes throughout time is place names, but terrain features hardly ever change. And so one map might have a mountain range that has one name, and then our modern maps would have a different name on it, but it's the same mountain range. And it might show on the older map old house sites, settlements, ranches, old mines, maybe even an old Spanish or Mexican presidio or fortress. So that's how I find a lot of my sites. And also just through, here's more nerdy stuff, I like to read old letters and journals from military soldiers from the 1700s and 1800s that were stationed throughout the Southwest for Spain and Mexico and the early U.S. Army, especially around the time of the Mexican-American War in the Southwest.
It's awesome.
And I like to hit those sites. And
Wow.
also, yeah, I'm just a huge
Tell
geek.
Tell
It's
us.
a good geek.
I love that, and that's the great way to geek out, because you're discovering and finding out new information about our history. But tell us, how has some of your research maybe paid off? Could you tell us that, or has it, with finding new sites and things, and maybe something you've discovered or found metal detecting, or just exploring?
I think it paid off twice in my life. Well, I find a lot of ranch sites all over the place and old mining camps and stuff, and a lot of times I find really cool rusty items that are unique. But twice in my life I found two sites that were really exciting for me, that are kind of like really pivotal milestones in my life. One was in the early 2000s, where there was a private ranch area in central Arizona. It's about a 33 square mile cattle ranch. It's privately owned, and I went to the landowner. This was my first time ever even approaching a private landowner, asking permission to camp and metal detect on his property. And he said that, yeah, they just finished their their spring roundup, and all the cattle are in a different part of the ranch. And so where I wanted to be, they said, we don't care what you do. We don't care what you find. If you find a pickup truck in a canyon that belonged to our grandfather, come let us know. And so I said, okay. And so I told them what I thought was out there. And sure enough, about a couple days into the trip of a 5-day trip I had planned, prior to that trip, I was following just my gut instinct on some research I had of a military expedition which set out from St. Augustine to Tucson, which is the old Spanish mission of what's now Tucson. That was the northernmost military fortification and settlement in Spanish Arizona at the time. And it was actually founded by an Irishman, Hugo O'Connor, a year before the signing of our Declaration of Independence as America. And there was 4 major military expeditions into this certain mountain range made by the Spanish, and all the major presidios of northern New Spain, like Fronteras and Arispe, they all congregated in St. Augustine to Tucson. It was a garrison of about 400 men that marched out 4 separate times from Tucson into this mountain range to quell a certain group of Apaches which no longer exists today, sadly. But it was called the Pinalero Apaches, and they spearheaded every major raid that hit Tucson. And Tucson was hit by Apache raids over 300 times. It made life very difficult for the Spanish settlers. So I found an area where I believe the Spanish had camped, either a small group or a large group. It was a fortified area, and it matched a lot of what people were talking about in their letters to family members and priests. And so I just followed the area, and I found an old piece of a bridle bit, and then I found what looked like a really bent piece of the buttstock of a musket, but looked like it was handmade, but you can see one of the screw holes in it. And then I found like a busted shako for a shako is like a military leather hat in a way, but for a cavalryman. And it's like most of what I found was broken. But then I found over 1,000 coins. Most of them were copper, and they were so beaten up. And then I found 30 silver coins, and then I found 3 gold coins. And when I do my presentations, I have about 30 of the coins left. So I have the silver coins and the 3 gold coins. And I told the landowners about it, and they said that they were like really taboo about it. They didn't want anything to do with it. They thought it was very malicious, and they didn't want to touch any of it. But when I showed them the coins, let's see the coins. And I showed them a couple of really weird, like flattened musket balls. And sorry, I think someone's trying to call me. I don't know if y'all can hear that beeping or not.
No, we can't. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, cool. But we ended up splitting a lot of the coins, and they took a lot of the military items. And I still to this day have never found an intact Spanish spur, but I have found broken ones. And I did find a lot of mining implements in that encampment. And what I believe it was a detachment of one of those military incursions into this mountain range by the Spanish. Obviously, it was in the mid to late 1700s, which this occurred. It had to have been around like 1780, 1790 when this occurred, because that's when the major military expeditions left St. Augustine to Tucson into this mountain range. And probably about a group of 10 or 16 really got their butts handed to them by the Apaches, and so much so that they left their money. And here's the weird thing about the coins. So if you can imagine a river bend, just imagine a horseshoe of a river bend. And the encampment is at the upper bend of the horseshoe where it just curves. So the coins were found towards the upper left edge of that bend, at the edge of the encampment, and they went then into the riverbed, which is sometimes mostly a dry riverbed, and then they went up on the other side of the other embankment, and then they went up the hill, which rises about probably 100 feet, and they stopped at the crest of the hill, and that's where all 3 gold coins were at the top of the hill.
Wow.
So I'm not sure what that says, but I think maybe somebody was running, or an animal got loose, and it was throwing the money here and there. And in Spanish Arizona, it was normally a barter society. They were trading everything. The main currency, if there was money, was silver, because there was a lot of silver mining in southern Arizona. If there was a gold coin, nobody would probably know how to splice that up into change if they were to buy anything, because gold coinage was so rare in Spanish Arizona. So I think what I found was some rich officer's purse, like coin purse, or maybe a payroll of some kind. I'm not sure, but all the coins I found, there was about 1,000 of them. It was like 1,019. Were all found in a line that stretched about 5 acres.
Wow.
Maybe about 400 yards.
Man, and you know what's so interesting about this whole story, and a lot of us, that have been in the hobby can attest to this in some way, is, sometimes we're given a breadcrumb or a piece to a puzzle. And that's what us as treasure hunters or, have to do sometimes. We're given a breadcrumb or a piece to a puzzle, and we do a little research, and we're able to piece another, piece to that puzzle, and then another, and then it leads to this, where it leads to maybe us finding a site like what you found, and then finding all these things that tell another story. It's just fascinating how it can all come together, and you can tell this most interesting story and tell a piece of our history that otherwise might have just been, out there for another couple 100 years or however long. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I was out there for quite a long time metal detecting, especially when I started finding silver coins. I'm like, yeah, I'll stay another night. Because the landowner said I could stay as long as I wanted to, and I ended up, that's my greatest stretch in the desert was that trip, and I stayed out there 58 days and 57 nights alone, pulling out coins.
So you camped out there and everything too?
Yeah, that's what, before that,
and
growing up.
You didn't need toilet paper.
I did not. I used mullein, because mullein grows everywhere in Arizona. I had lots of it.
There you go. See, no shortage there. I mean, you had all you needed right there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had to throw that in.
You're fine. But yeah, when I was out there for that long, I was really trying to be as professional as I could, and every night I would look at all the artifacts that I found, and I would draw the encampment of this sandy river bend where the Spanish had encamped, and I would draw where I found the artifacts, and I would try to piece together, okay, this is where 2 tent stakes were found, so that's where a tent was, and then this is where I'm finding a lot of horseshoe nails and old handmade horseshoes and stuff. So I'm like, so this must have been where they corralled the horses for protection on the opening of the river bend. So they must have had them against the cliff wall right there. And so I was trying to piece together everything. And then when this was all said and done, and those 58 days were over, I went to Tucson and I presented the evidence to University of Arizona's archaeologist down there. And he didn't want anything to do with it. He wasn't even interested in the slightest bit with anything. And then I'm like,
Really?
Look, here's some coins that I found too. And he just got more discouraged, and that was that. And so I'm like, okay.
Huh. Well, whatever. That is awesome. Gosh, that's crazy. Oh, man. Sorry, we've been having a few questions in the comments, and some of them have flown by, and I've already forgot. But one of them was Gary. First, he said to say hi to to Corey, and let me see for a second here.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Gary.
Gary said to say hi, and he wanted to know if there were any dates on the coins that you found.
Yeah.
Yes. The earliest dated coin was 1708, and most of the coins were from the 1780s. That's the most common dates on those coins was 1780s. The gold coins, the smallest gold coins, which are half escudos, which are the smallest gold coins you can find, which was the smallest denomination of the gold coin that they had, are from the 1760s. And then there's one from 1786, which is a 1 escudo, which is a little bit larger than the half escudo.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
It is.
Yeah, kind of like, if y'all remember Lord of the Rings, like Gollum, sometimes I just hold the gold coins and like my precious.
My precious, yeah. I would probably do the same thing. So, I just love that story, and I'm sure there's other things that you found since then. Is there more, even some recent things that maybe a little bit of research or a little thing, maybe something that you found recently or a story something that happened to you when you were out metal detecting? Anything you'd like to share or anything?
Well, there's one thing that happened right before I met you, Gypsy, and that was when I was stationed at Fort Hood. I was really discouraged when I got there, and I learned that the gold prospecting laws in Texas were not the same as Arizona. So I kind of was at a dead end when it came to treasure hunting and metal detecting and gold prospecting. I had no idea what to do. And it took a year to figure out the laws in Texas. When I asked a game warden, I was in the Lampasas River, and a game warden walked up to me because he thought I was going to throw the vacuum cleaner in the river, but he really realized when he got closer to me that I was holding a metal detector.
Oh.
It's funny. I thought you were going to throw a vacuum cleaner in the river. But I told him that, I was out here just metal detecting. I understood that the waterways of Texas were owned by the people of Texas for recreation. And he said, that's absolutely right. Just don't touch that bank, don't touch that bank, because that's all private property, and we don't care what you do with the rest of the river. Just don't break, throw, or destroy any Native American artifacts, and then that's that. And so I did some research once I learned that law for beyond the shadow of a doubt from a law enforcement officer, and I started following the Chisholm Trail, which was a cattle trail, a main cattle trail that went through Texas. And there was this little tiny town in Texas called Salado, and that's where there was a lot of old springs that date back thousands of years. In this little town, which also had the Chisholm Trail crossing right over it. And so I went to this little tiny gym in central Texas, and I had just a Tesoro Lobo metal detector. It's not waterproof whatsoever, but I went inside the river, and I found a gold diamond ring. It was a 10-karat gold ring with a heart inlay on it with little tiny diamonds, which were probably glass or quartz. It wasn't real diamonds, I'm sure. But then I found like 20 coins, a square head nail, and I thought that was a great day. Great day. And then just for fun, I walked down creek from the tourist area, right down river about 100 feet from where the Chisholm Trail crossed the creek and where the modern highway crosses the creek, which is also where it follows along the lines of the Chisholm Trail for a good ways. And I started seeing pockets of iron in the bedrock. And I just reached down and grabbed one, pulled it up, and looked at my hand and realized there's no way this is like, I called it a virgin site in a way, but there's hundreds of potholes in this bedrock. And bedrock is just pretty much like the crust of the earth, and it's just the bottom of the riverbed. There wasn't a lot of gravel at the time because whatever flood came before had cleared out a lot of the gravel, and so what was left was the bedrock and a lot of crevices and cracks and depressions in the bedrock. And gold's 19.3 times heavier than water, and between 6 and 8 times heavier than the material it's associated with, such as the the rock, the gravel, and the sand. Well, iron is heavier than rock, gravel, and sand also, so it deposited the exact same way that I noticed gold deposits in Arizona, and I thought this was really peculiar. And so I started thinking to myself, well, around bends, the inner side of a bend is where gold deposits. I wonder if the artifacts are depositing the same way, and they were depositing the exact same way. And I was finding literally tens, like I can't say tens of thousands, but I know I found over 5,000 artifacts in that 200-yard stretch of a creek, because that's when I stopped counting the artifacts. There was hundreds of square head nails. I found over 300 pistol balls, and I found 2 musket balls, which were about like a .69 caliber. And I found a revolver from probably around like 1920, 1930. Hundreds of horseshoes. I found the broken hilt of a saber from some point in time. It's just the bottom part of it. And, gosh, what else? Found over like 40 rings, like gold, silver, and copper. Found some lock plates. And then if y'all like know, like the Civil War in Texas, along Sterling or Salado Creek, there was the Sterling Plantation, and the Sterling family actually raised their own Confederate cavalry regiment, and they trained the soldiers right there at Salado Creek, and they were training them with pistols and shotguns, and that's why I was finding so many pistol balls in that creek, because that's where they were training before they did their patrols along the Red River. And so, yeah, when I found all that stuff, I met one of the head antique dealers in the town, and he told the curator of the museum there in town in Salado, and they put me on the news, and I donated everything to the Salado Museum, and so I helped stock a good portion of that little town's museum.
That's cool. I'm going to have to go over there. I live right up the road, as you know, Cody, from Salado. And I think it's in Bell County. And I need to go over there and check out that museum and see some of the finds you donated. That is so cool. I love it. And, of course, when you come back and visit Texas, then I can go explore some more there.
Oh, I love that. I remember what you were talking about, and I can't wait for that. That's going to be so much fun.
I hate going alone. I mean, I go alone so much and detect, but it's more fun when you've got someone to share in the history together and exploring and adventuring. I just, So
it's so true. It's so true.
Way. It really is. And that's why I appreciate with what you did there and donating those finds to the museum to be able to share that piece of history, with others. It's just, that's an awesome thing, an awesome story.
Thank you. And it was actually the Salado event. They put me on Waco Channel 25 ABC News, and I was I was there for a live session, and then there was a recorded session, and that helped me get on the Discovery Channel for an episode of Treasure Hunting with Rob Riggle that's going to air on the 29th of this month.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Yeah. So, y'all, I'm sure you be sure and post when you can and remind us when that is, because I know we all would love to watch that. How many episodes were you in, or I
was in one episode.
One.
Yeah, I was Rob Riggle's Treasure Hunting and Survival Guide on that show for that one episode. We were treasure hunting in southern Arizona.
That's so awesome.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I like him, so I'm excited.
Yeah, you can't be serious around the guy because he just makes you cry from laughing. You'll try to be serious, and he'll say something, and it just makes you snort laugh.
I haven't seen any of it. I might have to watch it. I'm so behind on everything lately. I'm going to catch up.
I was going to be doing another presentation in Salado on April 4th, but I'm not sure how that's going to play out now with everything closing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. We might have to postpone it, not cancel it, but just postpone it for a few weeks. But I'll still be coming out there this spring, early
cool.
summer.
Let me know, and hopefully I won't be traveling myself, so I can come and see your presentation. But also, maybe you and I can plan an adventure
that'd
together.
be fun.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
To Maine, right? You're coming to Maine.
yeah, we'll come to Maine. Yeah.
Right. So
and yeah, we got to make Amanda and I have a trip planned in May, and I'm hoping all this passes so we can fly. I can fly up there in May, and we can have our adventure. But yeah, oh man, I'm ready to travel. And go on some more detecting, exploring adventures.
Oh, yes.
So, Cody, can you tell our listeners how to find you? I'm going to post your YouTube link in here, but are you on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook group or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just type in the Arizona Treasure Hunter, and I'll pop right up.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not on Twitter. I don't know how to tweet. I'm sorry.
I started tweetering or whatever.
I
joined
I
a month or
love it.
so,
I love it.
and I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay.
So
I think I gave it a try, but I just couldn't figure it out, and so I'm like, I'll just stick with Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
yeah, no, it took me asking the younger one, like, okay, how do I even write anything on here? And he's like, you have to hit the feather. Like,
What?
okay.
The feather. The bird tweet feather.
Oh, makes sense.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Technology.
So
It's always evolving.
Do you have, obviously finding a gold coin is on a bucket list for most of us, but do you have a white whale or a bucket list item you're hoping to get perhaps this year?
One bucket list item I am shooting for is a brothel token. I have never found one. I always want to find one. And in Arizona, we have a lot of old Western mining towns. Some of them are not they weren't wooden structures. A lot of them were tent cities, but so a lot of those still had brothel tokens. So I live pretty much at the bottom of Jerome in, I guess it's like northern central Arizona. So I live in a small town, and there's two large dumps next to me, and I'm just trying so hard to get permission to go onto these dumps. But the progress is really slow on getting answers, but I'm patient. And I know there's got to be some tokens in there somewhere, but still haven't found one yet. That's what I'm always hoping to find is a brothel token.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That
Still
is a cool bucket lister.
Yeah, I'm still looking for the large scent that replaces scent with another word. It is supposedly used for those as well around here. So.
Okay.
Not a kind word to be used on air. So
got you. Okay.
Replace the E with another vowel.
Got you. Yeah.
How about the strangest or obviously, if our listeners don't know, you're also a ghost hunter? Is that how you phrase yourself?
Secret's out. Yeah, the secret's out. So I work up in Jerome, Arizona for ghost town tours. I take people out on tours of the town through walking or driving, and I tell historical history of the town, about the Wild West past, all the robberies that took place, the gunfights, and then all the ghost stories and all the hauntings of our buildings. Every building in Jerome is haunted, and I even take people out ghost hunting. So I give them the equipment, I take them to the old cemetery, then the old high school, and I let them ghost hunt. in our Boot Hill Cemetery and in our haunted high school, which has been untouched since 1972. So it's, yeah, that's what I do for work, guys. Yeah, it's a fun job.
So Mark had asked me to ask you about the time you shot a hole in your tent. Can you tell us that story? Do you have a...
I can. Okay, so obviously he's heard it before, if he knows about it. But this was the moment in my life when I realized paranormal activity was real. And it was a huge eye-opener and a slap in the face, because before that, I didn't believe in anything. I didn't even believe in believing. I'm like, this is life, and one day we die, that's it. And I was up in this mountain range, and I was hiking around, and I was doing a lot of metal detecting near the Salt River, still on private property with permission of the landowners, and this storm set in. And it was a bad storm. It started to rip my tent, and so I knew the only shelter around was an Indian ruin 1.5 miles to the north, and it was a hilltop fortress ruin with the outer wall still intact. And so I packed up my camp, and through the lightning and the sideways rain, I went overland through the desert, navigating through the lightning flashes to the Indian ruin, and I'm in that area so much, I could literally navigate it through the darkness. And it's even easier when there's lightning flashes, because it's like a camera going off. It's like, oh, okay, there it is, right over there. And I get to the walls, and I hunker down on the side of the wall until the wind dies down enough to set up my tent again. And so this Indian ruin's on private property, and I think that rancher has like 100 Indian ruins on his property. There's Indian ruins all over Arizona. They're everywhere. And so I go on the outside of the wall, no longer in the ruin, and you can still hear the storm. It's passing, but it's still close by. You can still hear the wind, and it's just lightning crashing. The rain is slowing down in my area, and I set up the tent, and I start to fall asleep. I'm so exhausted from the hike and from metal detecting all that day that I go to sleep, and I'm passed out inside my tent, and it's a single-person tent, so it's kind of like a tube. And I wake up to something hitting me in my left cheek of my face, and I look over, and the moon is out, so I could see there's 5 fingers. There's the impression of 5 fingers through the tent. And when I look over, I see the hand back away from the tent, as if it pulled away. And I know I'm in the middle of nowhere. It has to be midnight now or 1 a.m. And so something just punched me through my tent. And so I take my pistol, and I shoot where the hand just left, and it catches the tent on fire. And so I unzip the tent, and I step out, and I cock the gun again, and there's no one there. There's no one at all. The storm is gone. It's a full moon. I'm sorry. It's the moon was like a sliver. It wasn't full. And I remember not hearing any footsteps, and I'm slowly looking around. Like, imagine spinning in a circle slowly, so it takes like 20 seconds to complete a whole circle. And the only light that's really emitting is the light that's burning from my tent. And it's reflecting off the Indian ruin wall. And when the light burns away, from the Indian ruin, you hear whistling. And it sounds like this.
Whoa.
And it was that moment I realized, okay, there's more to life than just life. Okay. And so that's the moment I shot a ghost. Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and for 10 years, I didn't sleep in tents after that.
I don't think I would have either.
Yeah. But yeah. that's that story.
Wow, that's a cool story. I love it. Oh, man. Let's see. I know Amanda's got some more questions. I'm trying to think of one that we normally ask. And we probably, we've had you on the podcast before, but I don't think it was when Amanda was here. I think it was
when Mike was on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was still living in Texas when I was on the last time. Yeah.
That's right. And Mike will be having a podcast tomorrow night with another guest. So y'all be sure and listen in tomorrow night. But I'm trying to think of something maybe we didn't cover a previous time.
Well, you
Can
said
you think
you
of a
do
question for Cody?
gold panning.
Gold.
And so you metal detect, you gold pan. I think you had said too you were trying to get in to dig the dump. Is there any other type of treasure hunting that you do?
Yes, I like to try to do everything. So when I go out, I carry a pack with me. If I'm doing like short day trips or an overnighter, I'll carry a pack with me, and I'll carry like magnets for magnet fishing. I'll carry snorkel gear in case there's like a little creek or something like that, and I can do some crevicing. And I carry a screen in case I find a site that does have a dump, especially if it's on private property that I have permission to be on. So I'm kind of set up for everything whenever I go to a location. The two large dumps I'm trying to get access to are for two of the major towns that I live next to. And one town got its beginning in 1912, one town got its beginning in 1876, and so my fingers are crossed. I'm trying to get permission on those locations. But I also do, gold prospecting, metal detecting, river hunting. So, like with the Verde River and the Salt River, right now everything's flooded from the 5 days of rain that we had. But when the water subsides a little bit and it clears out, I'll go in the rivers and metal detect and free dive, where a lot of tourists like to come and swim and lose their jewelry, or they break up with their fiancés and throw their rings in the river. And then I find them. Yeah, at least that's what I think anyway, whenever I find rings that says, like, to Steve, love Steph, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. I think the Verde River is one of the largest breakup rivers in Arizona, because I find a lot of rings that are like to Abby, with love, David, or something like that. And a lot of rings. It's funny.
It is crazy. I was recently at it was where an old dump in Texas, there's an incinerator that a lot of the stuff from the dump were put into, and some stuff, survives, but sometimes some of the gold and the jewelry and stuff was melted through the incinerator. But there's this water. Well, it's like a city water ravine thing that water comes through and flows down, and it actually flows through part of this incinerator stuff, and it washes down into this creek, and you can walk in the creek and find a lot of really old, cool stuff from the dump. But right up there is a modern bridge, too, and last time I was at this creek, and we were kind of mudlarking with some fellow detectorists and treasure hunting friends. One of the guys looked down, and he thought, he could see it looked like a gold ring in the water, and we got all excited and got our cameras out and we're videoing. It turned out to be a modern, and we're like, oh, somebody chunked that off the bridge. They broke up or got a divorce, and it wasn't from the dump, but it was pretty cool. Anyway, it just made me think of it when you were talking about that.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Hey, gold, it's always great finding gold, older new.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah, I always, there's probably more reasons as to why those rings are lost, but whenever I find rings that are like romantically engraved, I think somebody threw it in the river. That's like my first thought. I'm like, oh, another breakup.
Yeah. That's funny.
You know, in Texas, when in Salado, a lot of the silver rings I found were Christian rings. They were like, I think they were called James Avery rings.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were called. They were like crosses and doves.
Yeah, I've found a lot of James Avery. It's a very big popular thing here in Texas. I think that's originally where the what's the word I'm looking for? Silversmith came from, the designer that designed the James Avery. And I remember the first time I found a James Avery ring, and I looked inside, with the loop. I think I'd found it on the beach when I lived in Galveston, and I hadn't heard of James Avery until I found that and looked it up. And then now here in Texas, everybody's buying, James Avery, silver jewelry, etc., stuff like that. So I found Texas shape. The ring is in the size of, that's what the ring is. It's the shape of Texas on the ring, but it's a James Avery that I found this last summer. It was one of the last rings I found this last summer in the lake.
Beautiful.
But, I didn't know what that symbol was. Kind of almost looks like a candelabra type thing. One of his marks thing that you'll find, but sometimes they'll say James Avery or initials or whatever, the maker's mark. But yeah, that's cool. I bet you found quite a bit since then, or you found them mainly in Texas, you said?
In Salado Creek, I found the silver rings that most of the silver rings I found in Texas turned out to be James Avery rings. There was some that have doves on them, some have crosses. There was a couple of rings that had 3 crosses on them, and I wasn't sure about that. And I guess some people said that was a Methodist thing, but I don't know. But it said it had the emblem of James Avery on it, so I'm not entirely sure. But it had 3 crosses side by side, and I think the weirdest thing I ever found in Texas was also Salado Creek. So I found a gold crown from someone's tooth in a crevice. I was just fanning in a crevice and found this gold crown. I wasn't sure what it was, but after an hour, I thought to myself, that kind of looks like a tooth. And I could see on the inside of it where it would have sat on the tooth, there was something white. And so I'm like, that must be a piece of the tooth, I guess. I don't know. And so I didn't really get confirmation until about, I think it was a week later, and 8 feet above where I found that mysterious gold item, I found the cremation tag.
Oh.
Yeah, so
wow.
That's my haunted gold right there. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a crazy find. I've heard of a lot. I remember the first time I was living in Galveston at the time when I first got started in the hobby, and I was water detecting, and I was a couple feet away from a guy that found, a whole gold bridge, that fit into somebody's mouth. And it was a common thing in our metal detecting club in Galveston. People would bring in what they would find, and they would find these gold teeth pieces or, grills and all kinds of stuff. I guess people out there swimming, and they get caught. You know how you get water in your mouth or, when you're doing flips in the water and swimming and stuff. And I guess you could lose their crazy. But it's what's even weirder is like what you said, the cremation thing, because these were more like mouthpieces that would fit up into, like, mouth. Like some of it were fake stuff. Just, you know what I mean? Not actual, like a tooth that is encased in gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could have been from a cremation.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do y'all remember in the '90s Jerry Springer, that show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Okay, so I remember it. I think it was in Lake Havasu, Arizona, that Jerry Springer, I think it was 97 or 98, he had this event called Springer Break, where Jerry Springer would go to a certain location where they were having spring break, and they would have this TV show, and they would have like a big party and drama and all kinds of stuff. Well, over by I think it was Lake Havasu, because it was the London Bridge, and Usher was on the rapper Usher was on a jet ski, and he lost his $14,000 diamond-coated watch underneath the London Bridge. And as soon as they announced that he had lost it, all you could see was people grabbing their scuba gear and jumping in the water.
Oh, gosh.
That was when I thought, oh, yeah, I bet there's a lot of stuff to be found in the lakes and stuff. But, yeah, I just got scuba certified, but I haven't had the chance to actually go treasure hunting in the lakes yet. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, come here this summer and we can go to the Guadalupe and do some. I'm not
I've heard
certified, but I would love to do that.
I hear that like tens of thousands of people travel to the Guadalupe and swim and party along that river. I can only imagine what could be found there.
It's insane. Yeah, I've had like days where I found 7 rings in one day just out there metal detecting, but just the amount of people that dive and that do the snorkeling and stuff, it's crazy what you find. I've found cell phones and pocket knives, watches, you name it. Some crazy stuff that I won't even mention.
Well, we do have one additional question, too. Mike Fusan asks, if you could dress up while you were out treasure hunting, what would you dress up as, like costume-wise?
Like a costume? Now, that's a hell of a question. I wish I could give him a high five. If I could dress up, I wish I could dress up like a conquistador.
That would be pretty cool.
Ooh, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my
mind. Maybe you could have like a sword in one hand, so you do for your digging instead of a shovel, and the detector in the other hand. Anyway, that's
a
cool.
good idea right there.
I like that.
That's already like the birth of a logo right there.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I love it.
Yeah, that was a cool question.
It is. That would make a... Yeah, we've asked it a few times, and I think it was Mike that originally started it, and we asked it for a funny... and we've asked a few times. We've gotten Flash. You can probably guess Amanda and ours. Mine was like Wonder Woman, and hers was Cat Lady or Catwoman. And yeah, we've gotten some fun answers. We have a lot of fun with that question. So
that is fun.
I love the conquistador. That's a really cool answer. But yeah, that would make a really cool logo. Hint, hint.
It would.
I love it. Anything else that you'd like to share before we wind down for the evening? Well, I know a lot of stuff is canceling right now with the virus stuff and maybe some events, but what's some things that you're hoping to do this year or places you're hoping to travel? And I know you have the new, or I think you do. I thought I saw a photo of the new gold machine that White's put out. Is that correct?
Yes. So, yes, the moment I became a field team member for White's metal detectors, White's was gracious enough to send me it's a Goldmaster 24K. It's a gold finding metal detector, and it runs about, I think, 47 kilohertz, which is perfect for finding gold for prospecting. And it's great at finding gold, and it is really great at finding relics too. So it's not waterproof, but they did come out with one that is waterproof. It's the exact same metal detector, but just waterproof. And I haven't gotten my hands on that one yet. But the Goldmaster 24K comes with a 10-inch coil and a 6-inch concentric coil. And I use the 6-inch. I'm sorry, it doesn't come with a 6-inch. That comes separately, I believe. But I use the 6-inch concentric coil because it just helps pinpoint targets better. And with the bigger coils, sometimes the metal detector has to work a little bit harder if it's a really trashier area. So I use the smaller coil to find those small gold nuggets and larger pickers. And also it helps me find a lot of the more, I guess I call them easy picking targets in a really trashy area. And yeah, so
that's cool.
The most recent thing I found was a Zippo lighter from an old house that was built around probably 1953. That Zippo
cool.
made that detector ring so loud. I haven't even posted the pictures yet, but that's my latest find. And
cool.
yeah, I'm not sure how to date Zippos, but yeah, it's my first Zippo lighter.
That is cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I did know I found one that was pretty crushed and was at an excavation site, and somebody did tell me that I could send it into Zippo to get a new one, though. It's like,
That's what I've heard.
That's cool.
Lifetime warranty thing on those. You can send it in and get a brand new one. But I kind of like the idea of finding the old and keeping the old, but that's just me as a treasure hunter.
I agree, yeah. It was just, again, how to date them, I'm not really sure. It seemed like the same logo all along, but I'm sure there's a site out there.
Yeah, and mine's not intact. It's like the inner sleeve of the Zippo, the kind that you pull out to refill it.
Yep.
And then you slide it back into the body. So it doesn't have the casing with it. It's just the inner part of it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And I found since we just had 5 days of rain, and the White's 24K isn't waterproof, so I didn't want to take the chance of getting that wet and damaged. I just went out surface hunting behind my house. There's this old ranch house from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it burnt down, and it's got a stone corral, which originated with the Spanish and then the Mexicans, and so whoever had that ranch had lived in the Southwest or had influence in the Southwest for a long period of time. And I was just walking around, and I found the head of what's known as a frozen Charlotte doll.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a frozen Charlotte doll, and I had walked by this one particular part of the burnt down house 100 times, never seen it, but it took 5 days of rain to uncover it because it's not metal. It wasn't ringing up with the metal detector. It's made of porcelain. So with the rain runoff, that porcelain doll's head was just shining bright as ever. And that's my first frozen Charlotte doll head.
Awesome.
And I've also found two marbles that day too. One's blue and then one's like yellow and white.
I love finding marbles, and it always does help to go out after it rains.
Yeah, I haven't found any clay marbles yet, but I keep finding the glass marbles.
You will. If you get in, I was recently here in Texas, I got the privilege of digging in a dump. I just uploaded a brand new video, and anyway, at this dump, I think I've dug 3 or 4 clay marbles now, and of course, the older the dump area, you especially in the dumps, you're really going to find the marbles. And I was excited because it was the most clay marbles I've ever found in one span of time, Usually it was very random, and I didn't have I only have like maybe 3 clay marbles that I've found in 21 years of detecting and stuff, but just recently with this dump. So if you can get on one of those dump sites that you're looking at and trying to, get permission, I'm sure that you'll be finding clay marbles in no time. With the older the dump site. So good luck with that.
Well, thank you. And right now I'm really working hard on trying to get permission to get into the dump site of Jerome, Arizona. I'm very close, and one woman owns it. And so when I get permission, y'all are both more than welcome to come out. We can dig in the dumps of Jerome. Yeah.
That would be awesome. And I wouldn't even have to keep the finds. I would be glad to donate them, to the museums or, to preserve the history of Jerome, especially anything that's found with, the name Jerome on there. But that would be epic. I would love that. I love dump digging just as much as I do metal detecting. That's hard for me to say. But I love them both. I'll just say I love them both equally. That's what I'll say.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't get into dump digging. I didn't get into dump digging until you showed me, Gypsy.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah, you took me to my first big dump, and I was like, wow, this is a whole different type of treasure hunting. Yeah. So I learned a lot in those 2 hours that we hung out.
I'm so excited to hear that, Cody. And you just keep sharing, and I know you're already influencing a lot of people out there, and it's exciting. That's awesome. That makes me feel good. Thanks for sharing that, Cody.
Oh, no problem. You're welcome.
So, unfortunately, we're running out of time. We've got a bunch of people that have left chat. I think they're moving on to some other shows that are happening this evening, but we'll definitely have you on again. Amanda and I actually discussed this before. We would like to possibly have you on somewhere around October again, if that's cool with you, maybe sometime around Halloween. I know it might be a busy time for you. But maybe to tell some little ghost stories and then, kind of go along with that theme and, and maybe relate, some metal detecting and adventures and stuff in there as well. But if that's cool with you, maybe we can plan on setting up a future date for that as well.
I am more than okay with that. That sounds like fun.
I think it'll be a fun time to do that. So we just want to, I know Amanda and I both want to thank you for being here tonight and sharing and keep up the great work. And we appreciate you and what you're doing. And go ahead, Amanda, if you wanted to say anything. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate you joining the show and taking the time to chat with both of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Gypsy, for having me on the show. It's been a blast, and I love these podcasts. They're so much fun. And, if we can do it on Halloween and tell ghost stories and some more metal detecting stories, that'd be a lot of fun.
Sounds great. Well, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to it already. Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. We're going to go ahead and wind this podcast up tonight. But all of you, stay safe. Get out there and do some metal detecting. If you're off work for all this virus stuff going on, take advantage of it. Get out there and do some digging. Perfect time. Take advantage. Stay positive and remember, just dig it. Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.